Welcome into a brand new episode of the Patriots Hub Podcast. Alex, Barth, Matt Dolloff with you from 98.5 thesportshub.com. Getting ready to talk about day 5. So it was day 5 of Patriots OTAs, the second one that was open to the media, but this isn't a linear process like training camp. I'll throw that reminder out there. But day 5, day 2 of open practice in the books, Dolloff, on Wednesday. And we'll start kind of where we left off after what was day 2, day 1 that was open to the media. Drake Maye threw 4 interceptions. Now, again, the reminder, this isn't linear. ESPN's Mike Reese reported that in the following practice, after that 4 interception one, Maye looked much better. They also had another practice yesterday, and then they were back out there today. So in terms of the court of public opinion, I guess, essentially, what did you make of Drake Maye today as he bounces back from those 4 picks?
Yeah, it was certainly better than, the 4-pick day. It was relatively clean compared to those days. He threw a lot of passes to Hunter Henry, whether it was in the competitive period or in the sort of non-competitive period where there wasn't really a defense out there. It was a bunch of guys in green and yellow pennies, including Mike Vrabel himself. As part of the
coaching
team there.
staff.
Yeah. The coaches were out there pretending to be the defense for a minute. But yeah, no, he looked sharper. He looked like he was a little more in command of what he was looking at down the field. To me, it wasn't so much the interceptions, that raw number of the 4 interceptions, so much as is he putting the ball in danger? And I didn't really see much of that today. There were a couple of passes where he kind of threw one up there to one of the backup tight ends. Might have been the undrafted guy, number
Dupree.
82.
Dupree, CJ Dupree.
Yeah, he kind of threw one up there. He was being tightly covered down the field, and I didn't love that decision to throw that ball. Like, I think, a better defensive back might have picked it off in a real game. But other than that, I didn't see him putting the ball in danger too much, which is what I like to see. And, it's hard to gauge in these practices non-padded. You obviously can't hit the quarterback. And so you wonder, and there's so many plays in these practices where, like, would that have been a sack? Would he have escaped the pressure? It's really hard to sort of gauge those things in these practices, but just you got to go by, how he looks when he actually throws the ball. And, the ball looked good coming out of his hands, and it was put in good places. It was put in much safer spots, I think, today for the receivers.
I thought there were a couple passes that were high, still wasn't perfect, still working through it, completed 9 to 17 in competitive drills, but he was better. There's still, I just think he looks unsure at times, which is to be expected, but it's growing pains with the new offense. This is kind of like what we talked about last week, and not putting the ball in danger, but there were a couple times where maybe he held the ball, might have been a sack in a real game. So a step forward, which you want to see, and it sounds like he's progressively made steps forward from that first practice we saw, but still some work to do for him again as he works to pick up this offense.
Okay, maybe I'm being a little nicer than you are, Barth, because there were the plays I'm talking about where you think it could be a sack were sort of the plays where he held the ball a little long.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I thought he looked like he knew what he was doing more than the 4 interception day.
I would say there was one part, he looked better. I don't mean to say it. Like, he looked better. The accuracy, just like early on, it was a couple high throws, which again, the interceptions were early last time. When he really got in a rhythm, though, to me, was when he was throwing to Hunter Henry, which is he knows, and it's still worked into this offense. You need to settle down, go to the safety blanket, go to your guy. And Hunter Henry is still his guy. I think and we'll get to Stefon Diggs, even when Stefon Diggs is in the mix, I still think Hunter Henry's the volume guy in that role. So that connection's still there, still working. It was just a little bit erratic early. And yeah, there were probably 1 or 2 sacks, but no, I thought, to be clear, I did think he was better in this one than he was last week.
Yeah, I just think it's sort of a I'm not accusing you, but I just feel like today is more of like a nitpicky type of day where it's like, okay, that pass wasn't totally on the mark. It was a lot easier to get on him for the ones where he's throwing interceptions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you want to have a nitpicky day with him at this point. You don't want to have to worry about the big picture with him. So nitpicky day is good. A nitpicky day is good, but we have to, as it goes, we have to do a show today.
Gotta do the show today, Barth.
The complete picture. That's where some of those incompletions came from him. I know. So 9 to 17, he had 8 incompletions. 1 was a drop. 1 was just and we'll get to the defense, a blown up screen where he had to sort of ground it. And it was the right play to ground it. The thing didn't work from the start. 2 of the incompletions, if I recall correctly, were high. So that accounts for 4 of them, 5 of them. And then the other ones were just incompletions. They didn't stand out as any particular reason. Oh, there's one deep ball that was just it can be hard to connect on the deep ball sometimes. So
yeah, I went back to my notes. It was actually number 87, Jack Westover.
Okay,
who was covered pretty tightly by Craig Woodson, the rookie safety, on the play.
Craig Woodson had a good day.
He looked good out there. He looks like he belongs from what I've seen. So it looks like he could be a relatively regular role for a rookie 4th round pick. But there were just certain plays like that where it feels like he's just sort of chucking it up sometimes. But I think there were other plays where, like you said, like there were the ones where he threw the ball away basically.
Yeah.
I think he's still going to work through that sort of stuff where like he needs to understand when it's time to just give up on the play, basically live to see another down. And when he actually has a play to be made. I think that's for me, it goes back to the decision making. And, I think it was a little better today. But I think, you get down to the little things where it's, he's not turning the ball over, but if he's putting the ball in danger, like he did on that Jack Westover play where he might've been better off just throwing it at the guy's feet or throwing it out of bounds. Like those are nuances, but you hope that he figures that stuff out, especially he's in his 2nd year now. He's no longer a rookie.
What else stood out to you from the offense?
Well, there were a couple of plays I thought were when Maye was getting rushed. I thought it was because there was pressure off the edge. I thought Keon White had a good day, and Keon White was going up against Will Campbell on a lot of those plays. He beat Will Campbell with a pretty nice spin move on one play. I think that play that I'm talking about, Drake Maye actually got the throw off at the last second. But again, it's hard to tell if he would have actually gotten the throw off in a real game. Keon White seemed to be giving him, a pretty good challenge. The rookie, like you expect the defense to be ahead of the offense at this point.
Right.
And OTAs where it's not even June yet.
And it's non-padded, non-contact too.
Right. And I know people might take this as like I'm dumping on Will Campbell, like I'm worried about Will Campbell. He's a rookie. And like there are questions about how he's going to translate to left tackle at this level. And so there might be, sort of growing pains. And I think it's kind of a tough matchup to put him against Keon White, who I think is a great fit for what Mike Vrabel wants to do. Certainly mentality-wise, Keon White is aggressive. He wants to get after it. And so I'm not surprised that he's having, I think, a pretty good OTA from what I've seen anyway. We've only been there 2 days out of 5. But Keon White looks good. He looks like he's adding moves to his arsenal. He looks explosive. He looks decisive. And it's unfortunate that Will Campbell has been sort of on the other end of that. But I think that that's just sort of that's how it goes with a rookie, and then you're in OTAs with the defense sort of being ahead of the offense. So I guess that maybe more of a thought on Keon White than the offense, but Will Campbell got some work to do. I don't think he's going to be he's not going to be perfect out of the gate.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be growing pains with him, and you hope he gets better from it. Again, without pads, it can be a little trickier. There's an advantage to the defense there. I thought the defensive front as a whole had a great day. Joshua Farmer, the rookie from Florida State, blew a couple plays up, getting pressure on the interior, including batting a pass down at the line of scrimmage. Anthony Jennings was really good. He was getting in the backfield regularly. Milton Williams had a pass breakup. So the defensive line had it across the board. Then there were a couple of those like would-be sacks where you couldn't really, like, they were sacks. They were good plays by the defense, but you can't really point to one player and say he made the play. This guy made the play. That guy made the play. They all, team meeting in the backfield sort of thing. So really good day for the defense. Really good day for the defensive front in particular.
Yeah, and the free agent edition, Kairos Tonga, was mixing in with the starting defense for a little bit in the competitive drills. So it looks like he's on track to be, to make the team as the starting nose tackle. It feels like he's the only guy on the roster that really fits, physically might fit that sort of profile. And so he's in there with the starters, and, it's not, he might not just be like, camp fodder, 1-year deal, type of guy. Feels like he might actually play a role here. And, he subbed out for Marcus Jones when they went from the bigger running, early down front to a more of a passing down defense. But it was interesting to see him mix in. Barmore's out there. Milton Williams, you said he had the deflection. I actually noted that Will Campbell actually had a good combo block on that play. Okay. And so I don't know if the pressure off the edge still sort of rushed Maye into the throw that got Milton Williams to bat that out of the air. But I thought that was a good moment for Will Campbell, and that's sort of the book on him. Yeah, he knows how to pick up combo blocks pretty well, and so it looks like that part could translate for him.
It was more like the throw was, it wasn't Milton Williams getting into the backfield and knocking it down. He just kind of was at the line, timed it, jumped up. So,
Yeah.
And it's a good play. Like either way, it's a good play by Milton Williams. I didn't see that from Campbell on that play. I think I was watching the receivers. Other offensive line notes. So Campbell's still the one guy that's like not moving. Everybody, Garrett Bradbury seems pretty locked in at center. There was a issue with the snap late today, but he seems pretty locked in there. Jared Wilson's been limited, so we've seen some Ben Brown. The guard spots are moving. Mike Onwenu's still limited. City So got some run there today. Cole Strange got some run there today. Left guard today, so it was Wes Schweitzer for quite a bit last week, and this week it was Tyrese Robinson who played there a good amount. Morgan Moses played more. He was limited last week. He really only did the walkthroughs, didn't do the more competitive drills at right tackle. He was out there today. Caden Wallace also not present for practice. One of four guys who wasn't there, along with Carlton Davis, Austin Hooper, and again, we'll get to Diggs. But that left guard thing, we talked about, all right, Layden Robinson, City So, Cole Strange, maybe even Jared Wilson. And we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And my guess would be it's rotating behind closed doors as well. And maybe that was the Layden Robinson day was behind closed doors, or Cole Strange day was behind closed doors. But Wes Schweitzer, Tyrese, why am I blanking on his name? Tyrese Robinson. These are not clearly these are not guys we talked about in the lead up to, that we're going to be looking at in this competition. So it does seem like it's wide open, and maybe what they're doing, and this isn't uncommon for OTAs, they're just trying to get everybody a baseline. So when they get to camp and this gets more competitive, everybody's working from a similar foundation.
Yeah, I think everybody's sort of getting a look, especially at that left guard spot. I wouldn't exactly project Tyrese Robinson to be the starting left guard, but it is just interesting the sort of the dichotomy between the left guard sort of revolving door, open competition sort of thing, and I feel like the other four spots are kind of locked in, Barth. I know that that it hasn't been the same players every snap, certainly not in the competitive drills. But I think Garrett Bradbury's gonna, play center for a while. They're gonna give Jared Wilson time to, I guess, he's limited. Maybe he's playing through something, working his way back, and they want him to sort of develop, and they're gonna give him as much time as he needs for that. I feel like the center and the right spots are pretty much locked in between Bradbury, Onwenu, Morgan Moses. I feel like those are locked in. Will Campbell, like you said, he's been playing left tackle with the Stars pretty much every snap. So it feels like he's locked in. They're not gonna mess with him. They're gonna say, play left tackle and do your best. Try to develop the best you can as a left tackle. They're not gonna screw with that. And it's really that left guard spot that they got to figure out. And so it's kind of a far cry from the last 2, even 3 years, where we're not even sure how the offensive line is going to shake out, how it's going to look. And look, we don't know how good this group is going to be, but it's got to be beneficial, in the long run, to have, 4, if not, close to 5 of your spots locked in, and having these guys playing together every day, working together every day, and it's the same combination. And I get that they've been rotating a little bit because Onwenu and Moses have been off to the side a lot. But I think those guys are the starters, and I think that's established. And I think these guys know, at least on that right side, and Will Campbell at left tackle, they know their spot, they know their role, they know what it's going to be. And so it's just a matter of, figuring out when exactly they're going to practice together and the reps that they get together. So overall, it was good. It was a good offseason in terms of, reinforcing that offensive line, retooling things, but it's another good sign that we're into OTAs, and it feels like most of the group is solidified, and we just got to figure out that left guard spot.
Yeah, and I think going back, we talked about this last year, just have it set, have everybody out there by the time the pads come on. That's when you really start building that continuity. That's when those guys really start working together. Like right now, it's there's some value in them getting those reps together, but it's really once the pads come on and they work
right
on the
now
run
it's
game that
it's learning the scheme, right? It's learning run fits, protections. It's not, obviously it's a different feel when you put the pads on and they start running actual plays. But I think in terms of the basic installs and setting the foundation, I do think it's good that, they have their group sort of almost figured out already.
Receivers, I thought Kyle Williams had another good day. Smoked Miles Battle off the line for a deep ball. That was one of the plays of the day. Look, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself with a, speed receiver in a non-padded setting. We got to see what happens when they can hit him.
Right. We've been warning each other about this for like
Right.
5 podcasts in a row now, right? We don't want to get too excited about Kyle Williams yet.
But I will say this. It feels like Kyle Williams is out there a lot. It feels like he's working with Drake Maye a lot. And that tells me that he's clearly doing something that the team sees that the team likes. It might be something on the field. It might be something behind the scenes in the meeting room or whatever. But they seem to feel like he's earning these chances. So that in itself is encouraging. It's not everything, but it's encouraging for me. So I thought he had a good day today. And then Javon Baker had a weird day. He had a couple nice catches. He also had one on a deep ball from Ben Woldridge, and he's really the only wide receiver that's working with all 3 quarterbacks, which I think tells you they really want to get a look at him because they really don't know what they have on him. Deep ball from Ben Woldridge, very clear push off, makes the catch, celebrates anyways. The team's heading back to the huddle, kind of hears it from Mike Vrabel, who then was talking to him coming off the field. So that's, he's going to be a roller coaster. Javon Baker is going to be a roller coaster. He's going to have to earn a spot on the team. He's hardly a roster lock. He's going to have to earn a spot. Was it a good day for him? Was it a bad day for him? He did have those catches, but he had that moment with Vrabel as well. It's going to be interesting to kind of follow him. He's going to be one of the more interesting stories throughout the summer, I think.
Yeah, well, first of all, Bart, that to call that a push off is to put it rather lightly. I would say that was more like a judo takedown on that pass from Ben Woldridge, where he threw the guy down and then took it all the way down the field, showboated a little bit. Mike Vrabel gave him crap right there on the field after the play. He wanted him back in the huddle, that whole thing. But yeah, and then we saw Mike Vrabel walking off the field with Baker, just them two, and like Vrabel looked a little animated, but it was sort of. I feel like it was sort of like, look, sorry, I bit your head off on the field, but this is what I want. This is what we need out of you, and this is what, you can't be doing that. And it's like he got excited, animated, and yelled at him on the field, and then after the fact, they talked it out. You know what I mean? And so that's what I like to see from Vrabel is that, he's not treating Baker like, look, you're not going to make the team if you're going to act like I don't like. He's not treating him like beneath like any of his other teammates. He wants to get close to him one-on-one and have that sort of close one-on-one time and like really have that deep communication with the guy. And so that tells me that they feel like he could still bring something to the table. And it's just like, he's just got to sort of get his head on straight. And like, we know he can make plays. But can he do everything else the right way? Can he conduct himself the right way? And I think that is important. It's important for to have consistency and to be on the field consistently. So I think those are things that, he still has to work through, and Vrabel is obviously putting in the time to work with him on that stuff. And Kyle Williams, yeah, he had a good day. He explodes off the line of scrimmage. We've seen that in these practices. Like, I think even with the, even in the non-pads and all that, you can see the explosiveness and you can see the footwork off the line, which is definitely good traits to have. There was the one play though, like if we want to knock him down a peg, there was the one play where it looked like he caught the ball and then it was punched out. And so I know drops have been an issue for him. So like, but maybe just ball security in general is something that he needs to focus on.
That's a good point.
We know he can run. We know he can get open. It's catching the ball and holding on to the ball that, that are things that we need to keep watching for Kyle Williams. So that's going to be the thing that I'm going to keep watching for him going forward. But yeah, those were definitely the two most notable receivers today. Kendrick Bourne got a good amount of targets from Drake Maye. I think one of those high passes was intended for Bourne. It went off his hands, but it was, it was like way over his head. So Bourne looks like a guy that like Josh McDaniel still wants to get him involved. Drake Maye feels like he still trusts him. And so he's going to get a fair chance. I just don't look at most of these guys as, locks to make the team. I think Kyle Williams is in. Stefon Diggs is in, as long as he can stay on the field for one reason or another.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
And other than that, it's kind of an open competition, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, on Bourne real quick, there are people who are writing him off the roster already. You don't do that. And that's not me saying he's guaranteed going to make the team, but he's very involved today. He has chemistry with Drake Maye. He likes Josh McDaniel's system. I think he does a lot of stuff that Josh McDaniels wants done. Yeah. He's going to have a real shot at this. The one thing working against him, to me, the biggest thing, he's coming off that knee injury. He's going to turn 30 in August. Do they just want to be younger at the position? Would they rather carry a guy in Baker or Polk or Booty who maybe has more upside just on his age, but performance-wise, like, he looks good. Kendrick Bourne looks good. All right, Mike Vrabel addressed the Stefon Diggs video before practice. Basically just said we're aware of it. kind of used it as an example of the overall program. We need to be making good decisions on and off the field. If you haven't seen the video yet, if you don't know what we're talking about, if you look up Stefon Diggs on Twitter, it's everywhere. It's him on a boat at a party with a unidentified substance.
I can't believe someone will be watching this podcast and be like, wait, what happened? What video?
Yeah, that's true. I feel like you got to give that disclaimer, but I would assume most of our listeners have seen it. What did you make? And you kind of, for more on Vrabel's comments, Matt has that on 985thesportshub.com, but what do you make of the video of Vrabel's comments and Diggs' situation?
I mean, I don't want to speculate on whatever that substance is that he takes out. Like, I know common sense. Like, people know, like, look, well, you know what it is. What do you think it is? Like, I get it. But I'm not going there just yet. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if he consumed it. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know exactly. I get it. I don't know, but like, what do you think? Like, I don't want to get into that whole thing. But like, I just look at it like guys are going to party on boats. Like, this is going to happen. Players are going to be out partying. Stuff like this is going to happen. Why is it on video? Why is he doing this in full view of the camera? I can't believe he would be this stupid to bust that thing out right on camera. Like, what? I don't get what he was thinking with that. Like, to me, like, I can't wag my finger. It's like, how dare you get on a boat in Miami and party with girls in bikinis and possible substances going around like that. I'm not naive. I know that stuff happens. I'm saying, why is he so public about it? I can't believe how blatant he was whipping that stuff out right on camera. Like, that's the part that blows my mind. Like, if he gets in trouble, I'd almost be like, well, you kind of deserve it for being that dumb and that brazen about it. So Vrabel, you mentioned, decision making. You want to make good decisions on and off the field. You wonder about Stefon Diggs' decision making, just doing all that in general. But I think realistically, that stuff's going to happen. But just the fact that even if like there were no substances or whatever, like say it was just a video of him partying on the boat. Yeah, people would still look at it and be like, dude, what are you doing? So OTAs are going on. You're out doing this right now. Why aren't you with your team? Why aren't you with your teammates? And so that's why it's like, why couldn't he just keep all that stuff to the side? I guess it's hard when you're with Cardi B. Like, someone's going to have their phone out on the play. You can't just have confiscate everyone's phones. Like, I guess
we don't know that he was actively like, hey, record this. It could have been somebody was recording and he maybe didn't know or didn't notice, but have that, it's a possibility, and you got to be aware of that. I'm with you. Like,
I mean, but if you're busting out an illicit substance like that, why don't you go down to the lower deck, all right, and just have everyone put their phones away? Like, I can't believe the lack of discretion. That's what's shocking about it.
That was kind of one of my first thoughts. Is just like, I can't, it's on video. We know celebrities. Like, he's not just an NFL player; he's a celebrity.
He was at the Met Gala, for God's sake.
Yeah, so we'll see. I wonder if there will be any further discipline. I think the NFL didn't have a comment. I believe I saw when Mike Reese was asked about it and
declined to comment. Yep.
It would be tough to prove anything. So can he really get in trouble for it? It's just a matter of like, if you're going to be doing that, you'd better show up come week one, right? If he's balling out, party all you want. If you're putting up 100 yards a game, if he comes out slow, there's going to be questions about, well, he was rehabbing and it was a new team, and should he have been somewhere else?
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. Like,
well, it was bazooka bubblegum, so nothing to worry about.
We can question his focus. If he comes out and performs, and he's looked good in those workout videos for whatever that's worth, then he comes out and performs, and we're laughing about this in September. If not, it's going to be brought up.
I'll be laughing about it if he just comes back and he plays and it's fine and all that. You just got to wonder, like, how dedicated is he to getting better on the football field? Like, I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't care about being good on the football field. I think at the end of the day that this is a thing that guys do, especially in May. It's not in the middle of football season. This isn't quite on the level. Like, take the substance out of it. Like, this isn't on the level of Odell Beckham Jr. being on the boat, the day before a playoff game. This is May. It's optional, OTAs. He doesn't have to be there. He probably can't even do much in terms of football activity yet anyway, still coming back from that torn ACL. But if he puts himself out there, then it's fair for everyone to question everything. And so that's why my issue with it is, like, if you're going to do this stuff, like, please just keep it on the down low there, Stefon. Like now you're causing all this distraction, and like your head coach has to answer for it while you're not here. Like that was a bad look for me. And just, you better hope that he comes back. He's healthy and he's the same guy. And so now we're going to be left holding our breath because of this whole thing.
Anything else from practice today?
All right, Barthy, let me pull up my notes here. I got to see if Cole Strange got heated with Truman Jones earlier today. It was nice to see.
And Anthony Jennings stepped in there as well. A little bit, nice. Not a fight, but a little pushing and shoving.
It was nice to see Cole Strange have a pulse there. It was nice to see him have a pulse.
There you go.
Joshua Dobbs had a pretty solid day too. I thought he also had a few passes that sailed a little high. But I thought he looked fine. I thought it was interesting how he's sort of like the quarterbacks are staying in the pocket in a lot of these plays. Like, I don't know if they're telling them that they shouldn't try to take off, but I feel like there's been no scrambling or anything like that. They're all trying to just move around in the pocket and find, buy time to throw down the field. I thought that was interesting. Efton Chisholm, the undrafted rookie wide receiver, had a good day. He looks pretty explosive. I think we thought already that he had a pretty good chance to make the team. But I thought he looked good today. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts getting, more extended looks, possibly with the starting offense. I think he looks good so far. So those are my main notes from today.
I'll add one more. I thought Craig Woodson was really good, just sticky in coverage all day. Yeah. His most notable play was probably there was one where Jaheim Bell runs up the seam, and we got to see a lot from the battle for the third string tight end with Austin Hooper out. Jack Westover, who remains very involved. CJ Dupree had a couple targets, and Bell runs up the seam, and Woodson's right on him, and Dobbs threw it. I think he was trying to throw him away from the coverage and just turned into an underthrow. But Bell comes back to the ball, makes like a diving, sliding grab. There really wasn't anything more that Woodson could have done about it. So that was probably the play he'll get talked about the most for, but there were a couple other times where he was sticky in coverage, and he just seems to have a knack for being in the right spot at the right time, which is very, very important in safety position, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that play that I was talking about earlier, I know Jack Westover isn't exactly, a high-end prospect at the tight end position, but he was right there. He was sticky in coverage on that play.
Got to start somewhere.
And he could have made a play on the ball there. So like, I thought that was good.
Yeah. That's a good point. So that will do it. Real quick, any thoughts on David Andrews officially retiring on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought all along. That's what we were sort of hearing, rumblings about, that he was going to retire. And so I guess they must have, released him because he hadn't quite decided yet. He was still contemplating, but I felt that this is where it was trending. At this point, the fact that he didn't, immediately sign somewhere else sounds like he's sort of settled down. He didn't really want to, uproot his family or, move somewhere else or spend half the year in another, somewhere away from his family. So look, great career, great Patriot. He should be in the Patriots Hall of Fame someday. You might have to get in line behind a few other guys. But he was, a great Patriot. And, I think one of the sort of unheralded pieces of that last half of the dynasty was the fact that they were able to bring in this undrafted guy, undrafted 6'3" center from Georgia. And he becomes not just a starter, but really a mainstay on that offensive line. Really missed only one season. And other than that, was a really good player. And he was, it wasn't exactly the easiest to find guys that were perfectly in sync with Tom Brady. Your Julian Edelmans, your Rob Gronkowski's. David Andrews is in that category. And so, just hats off to him. Great career.
I think a guy that embodies, and people roll their eyes now at the Patriot way after the last 5 years, but for what that thing was in its prime when we talked about it, that's David Andrews, embodied the Patriot way. So we'll talk more about Andrews next week. We'll be on after that press conference, which will be Monday, which will be after the third and final open OTA practice minicamp the week after. But we'll be back with the next pod on Monday, breaking down that practice. For more on today's practice, the Stefon Diggs stuff, David Andrews, 98.5thesportshub.com. So until Monday, for Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.